What's been made official from Ron Rivera, Jacoby Brissett is the starter for here on out, and we're going to talk about it in this video. Welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs YouTube channel. My name is Greg, and this channel is dedicated to the Washington Commanders. If you're down with that, please make sure you have subscribed to this channel. And when you have, make sure you have also hit that notification bell so you will know when another video has been released. Well, folks, guess what? Sam Howell has been officially demoted to number 2. Which means that Jacoby Brissett has been named the starting quarterback for the Commanders, at least for this weekend, and probably more than likely, I would assume, for the last 2 games of the season. We're going to get a chance to see how Brissett will be as the starter and to see exactly how this offense will run under Brissett. Here's the thing. I've been so confused with this. Honestly, I'm torn because obviously we could see that Sam has been beaten up. He's been mentally beaten up, physically been beaten up. He's been worn down. Probably should have been sat down a few weeks ago. Obviously, we wanted to see what Sam could do to kind of collect himself, to get himself back into playing the ball that he was playing earlier in the season. But I think after a while, we saw a quarterback who was just shell-shocked, right? I mean, he was feeling pressure that just wasn't there at times. I felt like a lot of times he was just kind of working himself into sacks that he could have easily avoided, and just the last 2 games is just horrible for Sam Howell. And so obviously I can understand going to Brissett. I really can at this point. And unfortunately for Sam Howell, he's worked himself out of the starting position and possibly has pretty much worked himself out of the conversation of being the starter for next year. And honestly, Ron Rivera can say all he wants to as far as if he still has confidence in Sam Howell and all this stuff. It's really not going to matter what Ron thinks of Sam Howell at this point. What's really going to matter is the fact that there's going to be a new regime coming into Washington next year, and they're going to evaluate Sam Howell. Now, I don't think that they're going to necessarily get rid of Sam Howell. There'd be really no advantage to get rid of Sam Howell. But I don't see an advantage to them starting Sam Howell at this point next season. Even if Sam Howell, I think, finished the season, as he started, playing really well. I mean, you got to think, at one time, he was, I think he was in the conversations of possibly making the Pro Bowl. I mean, these were conversations that were being had, and I think he was actually getting votes for being in the Pro Bowl. That being said, obviously now I would doubt that happens, but I think despite that, a new regime would still probably more likely would want their guy. Unless that Sam Howell just dramatically, honestly, unless Sam Howell showed that he could put the team on the back of his shoulders and lead them to victories, you're obviously not going to have a regime coming in thinking that this kid is ready. And Sam Howell's not ready. I still think he has potential. And I still think that if you could give him a good offensive line, that he could work some wonders for you. But the problem is that I think there was so much against Sam Howell that it's just going to be very difficult for him to succeed in the position he's been put in. For Jacoby Brissett, he is someone who is obviously, he is a much more seasoned veteran. He knows how to work the system. And it does seem like Eric Bieniemy does seem to call a different game when Brissett is in there. But let's keep in mind, folks, Brissett is coming in after the flow of the game is going through its flow, okay? He's coming in the second half of a game that has pretty much already been decided what we felt like was decided. Of course, he brought them back, and actually, the Commanders were leading at one point with Brissett. So, twice in a row, was it one time, shame on you, fooled me twice, shame on me. Okay, all right, so Brissett, let's see what he can do as the starter, because it's a much different thing when you're starting a game from start to finish. Sometimes it's easier to actually come in as the game is already flowing, and to come in there because the defense, they're worn down a little bit. They have kind of taken the foot off the gas a little bit. So let's see Brissett coming in and see what he can do against the vaunted San Francisco 49ers defense. And then, of course, a Dallas defense that's not too shabby as well. So I don't expect, regardless of which quarterback is going to be in, folks, I don't think it's going to matter one bit. And I think you can pretty much guarantee that we're probably going to be picking in the top 5 regardless at the end of the season. So I don't expect that Brissett's going to lead us to a victory over either the 49ers or the Cowboys. But I think that you are going to see much better quarterback play from Brissett at this point than what you've seen with Howell. I think Howell was just done. I think he was just burnt. In my last video, of course, I was blaming a lot of Sam Howell's inconsistencies, maybe not his inconsistencies, but just his overall poor quarterback play on the coaches. I feel like the coaches have kind of, given him the Patrick Ramsey treatment, and I still believe that in a sense. And I know there were a lot of people who vehemently have disagreed with me on that, and that's fine. You can disagree. I'm still a Sam Howell fan. I'm still rooting for the guy to succeed. I know there are a lot of people who don't want him to succeed. But let's keep in mind, Sam Howell, just a year, well, not maybe a year ago, but a couple of years ago, before he decided to go into the NFL draft, I think his sophomore year, he was rated to be in the first round. So he was going to be one of those quarterbacks at one point, and then, he kind of got picked clean as far as a lot of his targets in UNC, and I think a lot of his protection on the offensive line. And so, didn't have quite the year after that. Maybe it was his junior year. But despite that, a lot of people looked at, well, he's a fifth rounder. He's fifth round talent. Keep in mind, he was really rated to be a much higher pick than when he got picked. And so while he was picked in the fifth round, I still feel like he was a much higher quality quarterback than that. And I think he can still be that way. But unfortunately, I think he was put in a situation where, Eric Bieniemy was going to really, he's going to expect a lot out of him. Really didn't give him much opportunities as far as, a balanced offense with a run game. I think that's very crucial for development of a quarterback. And I think he was putting a lot on Sam Howell's shoulders. And I just think it was too much to handle. And, of course, that porous offensive line, that's a lot. That is a lot. I think it just really, at first, I thought that Sam Howell handled it magnificently. I mean, yes, he was taking a lot of sacks, but he was still playing pretty well, and he played pretty well for most of the year up until the last several weeks. And then you started seeing a steady decline, and I think it all caught up with him. And I don't think that is the Sam Howell that you're going to see. I think that Sam Howell can be a starter in this league. And I think just giving him the opportunity to be in a balanced offense, to be behind an offensive line that will pass protect much better than what we had, I think he can succeed. But I just don't think it's his time just yet. So moving forward, we're going to have Brissett for the next 2 games. So I know that there's a lot of people who are kind of like, no, we can't have this because that gives us a better chance of winning. Again, I don't think that we're going to win any games, so I think you're okay with that. But I think it does give us an opportunity to take a look and see what Terry McLaurin and John Dotson and all of them can really show within this offense. It also gives you a better look at Eric Bieniemy's offense and how it's supposed to be ran by a seasoned veteran. So I'd like to see that to really get a good, honest look at Eric Bieniemy. I think it'll also give him an opportunity to show you how that he can run the offense by himself, and maybe gives him an opportunity as well as a head coaching look. Now, do I think that Eric Bieniemy is going to be the next head coach here? I think he's going to get an interview, but I don't think he's going to be the head coach. I think the owners, or I think the GM, whoever that's going to be, I think they're going to look outside of the organization, and I think you need to, because honestly, I think you need just a clean slate. But you definitely don't pass him up. Don't pass him up just yet. I think you do interview him, you do get his ideas, and you do at least find out. Don't write Eric Bieniemy off just yet. Give him a good chance to really state his case. But otherwise, do I totally agree with Jacoby Brissett starting these last 2 games? Part of me wants to say yes, part of me wants to say no. At this point, I don't know what it matters to really be starting Jacoby in these last 2 games, other than to really showcase the other talent on the offense, to really see what they can do. We know what Terry McLaurin can do, but for the rest of the talent around him, I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know why you wouldn't have just allowed Sam to just finish the season, and then let him know that, hey, there is likely going to be a quarterback competition at best next season. You're probably not going to be given the starting position, if you even are in that conversation next year. And just roll with it like that, because at this point, the Commanders are not going to the playoffs. That right now the Commanders have the 3rd pick in the draft, and if they maintain that, there's a high likelihood that they're going to be drafting a quarterback, because there's going to be one of those 2 quarterbacks, very likely, that's going to be at number 3. I just pretty much feel that either Drake May, maybe even Caleb Williams, are either one of those guys are very likely. I just feel like they're going to be at number 3. And if so, as much as I have said before that you need to draft that left tackle, and it pains me to pass up a Joe Alt or the other guy that I cannot pronounce his name, but he's actually, I think, the better of the 2 left tackles. I would love to be able to have a situation where I can have one of those left tackles and draft a quarterback, and maybe we do that. But I just feel like if either one of those quarterbacks is available at 3, you're looking at this team drafting a quarterback. So that being said, let me know in the comments what you think. I don't think this was much of a surprise for anybody, but Jacoby Brissett is going to be our starter for the last couple of games. So, folks, that is it. We'll be back with more.